Here we are at IBMA, and we're sitting here with Justin Moses, who yesterday casually won the Dobro Player of the Year award. I actually saw you earlier in the day, and we talked about sitting down together, and in the meantime, you went and did that. Anyway, congratulations on that. That was
Thank
amazing.
you very much. Yeah, I was just honored to be nominated, being amongst the nominees.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely, I understand that. Now, I wanted to ask you, I said this yesterday to you, you are more than a multi-instrumentalist. You don't just play a lot of instruments, you really, absorb it and play it at a whole other level. And so my first question I want to ask you is, when you were younger, like how old were you when you started, and what was the situation of starting?
Sure. I started playing mandolin, was my first instrument, when I was 6. And my family always, there was this gospel TV show that came on Sunday mornings every week, and we would tune into that, and there was this band called the Primitive Quartet, and they had a mandolin player, and for some reason, just seeing that instrument played, I thought it was really cool, and so I asked my parents for a mandolin for
How old were
Christmas.
you around that?
I would have been 5 when I asked for it, and so I turned 6 in December, and then at Christmas, I got the mandolin.
Wow,
And started playing. My dad played guitar and my mom played piano, and so Dad always played along with me. He knew enough about the mandolin to show me the first few chords and a few tunes.
So did you take lessons, or did you just learn on your own?
I took about 6 weeks worth of lessons from a guy named Harley Millsaps that lived in Madisonville. Dad knew of him, there in town, and he taught me a bunch of tunes. He would record probably, maybe the first few lessons he might have recorded 2 or 3, and then I think it kept increasing a little bit as he saw that I was able to, I would come back the next week and be able to play them pretty much, the way they were supposed to go.
Right.
And so he kept adding new tunes to that and to that cassette, and so I would go home and work on it.
So you just worked a lot on it.
I did, yeah. And then after that, it was by ear.
Oh, really? Wow. So you're growing up, was that the instrument you started out playing with other people, jamming?
It was mostly with my family for a long time, really. I hardly had a chance to play with a lot of other people. When I got up into my teens, we got a little bit more into bluegrass from the gospel world, but got more into just straight up bluegrass, and then there was plenty of people in Monroe County that played some, and so I got to go out to the jams.
Where's Monroe County?
It's in the southeastern corner of Tennessee.
Oh, okay, I see. So how old were you when you then took on another instrument?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, but it's difficult to answer, because my dad, played guitar along with me, and I learned a lot just watching him, how the guitar worked. I understood that when I'm playing in G, he's making this figure right here, so that's G,
right,
and he's making this figure C. When I change to C, I know that he's changing to this. So me just watching him and picking up on what happened with the guitar, that was I probably started that at 7 or 8, just after I'd been playing the mandolin a while. That's just a guess, though.
At what point did you go out and start doing things that made you what you are now? Like I saw 10 years ago, you started out with Dan Tyminski Band. But what got you there?
Okay, I'll say this too about the other instruments. My dad always liked to trade, not just instruments, but he traded pocket knives and all sorts of things, guns or whatever. He would trade And so at various times he would have a banjo in the house, or a dobro or fiddle, and anytime that he got a new instrument in, I was interested in it too. So that's why it's also difficult for me to pinpoint exactly when I started playing fiddle or dobro.
Because you had a taste of it.
Yeah, I had
a lot of little
small
tastes.
tastes of it as a kid, and not taking it seriously, but at the same time, I pretty much took everything that I did musically seriously too.
So like if you knew, say, GCD from watching your dad play, so then when you picked up an instrument that was new to you, you'd start trying to figure out GCD.
Yeah, GCD and just basic tunes,
Right, yeah.
The same way. Once I learned a few tunes on the mandolin, at first, when I picked up the guitar, what I went by was not necessarily. I'll say I was transposing, I guess, by the notes. Thinking about how they sounded more than like any sort of correlation with the strings necessarily. You weren't just jamming. You were trying to figure out exactly what was going on. Yeah.
Almost like a scientific approach.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but also just jamming a little bit, just figuring it out by
Were
ear.
you in bands in high school?
Okay, so about a year after I started playing, maybe a year, I'm not even sure what the timeline is on this, I started traveling with my family's gospel group. And so that was the first.
What was the name of the group?
Just the Moses Family.
And you just tour around?
We played at churches there in East Tennessee, mostly just right around the area, but there's a lot of churches there.
Right.
So.
Who was in the band?
Okay, it was my mom and dad and my uncle Gary. So my dad and uncle both played guitars, and so we always had two guitars, and either, we had a lot of family friends that played along, a guy named J.W. Ivins sang some bass with our group, and
Who was playing bass?
well, we had different people, at different times, but my mom ended up being the bass player.
But it was gospel music you were doing.
It was, yeah.
So heavy on the vocals.
Yeah.
And what were you playing then?
I started, playing mandolin, but then once I started trying to learn other stuff, when we got more into bluegrass, I sort of switched to banjo.
Was there a time that first time you heard like Skaggs play or something that just blew you away?
Well, there was definitely those moments, and I can definitely point to two that stick out in my mind. And one is seeing Allison Krauss and Union Station play on Austin City Limits for the first time, and that was probably in '92 or something.
So how old are you at that point?
About 11, probably. Right. Yeah. And so that's when I really, the first time, thought bluegrass was really cool. Even though I was a fan of acoustic instruments and stuff, but that combination, hearing that, really changed things for me in that regard. And hearing Ron Block's banjo, really, I think, that, and also my uncle, around the same time, brought in a cassette of Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver, and Jim Mills was playing banjo on it. Yeah. Those two banjo players are probably the ones that made me want to play the instrument.
Well, I'm just thinking, you're loving Allison Krauss, then you go to work for Dan Tyminski. Yeah. Who else was in that band with you?
Barry Bales, who played with Allison, and then Adam Steffi, who was on that episode that I was seeing, and Ron Stewart, who's just a phenomenal musician.
So was that the first? Were you in bands before that?
Yeah. So I'll take you through a little bit of the chronology there. In high school, I ended up. There was a guy in Monroe County named Tim Tipton who I had jammed with quite a bit, and he got in this band. And I think they decided to form a new band. It was called Kentucky Wind. And so I was in that in high school for, maybe my senior year or something like that. It was around that time that I was doing, we were just playing like contests, like band contests sort of things. And right after I got out of high school, Tim sort of wanted to take it to another level, and he came to me and asked, well, what do we need to do to take this to another level? And we decided to form a new band at that point, and Blue Moon Rising was the band that, the first band that I really traveled with, and that happened, like I say, like pretty soon after high school.
And who's in that band with you?
So that was Tim Tipton on bass, Chris West was a guitar player and singer, and Keith Garrett, who now plays with the Highland Travelers, played with the Boxcars. Keith, great guitar player, but he played mandolin in that band.
So was that also for him one of his first serious bands?
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, he had played, in some bands and played a lot of gigs at Dollywood for a long time, stuff like that. But this first one that I think any of us really, travel to the extent that we did. Along the way, you meet other people, and ended up playing some with Newfound Road, band out of Ohio, and I can't remember exactly how I even got hooked up with them. I think it was maybe even through Steve Gully. Like we'd been around him a lot. And anyways, I traveled with them for a little bit. I never really actually joined that band, but I was a semi-member of that band for a while, and then I actually met Sierra around that time. She was very young, and we enjoyed playing music together, and I did a few things, with her and her dad and brother, and but then I may be getting that a little out of order. Like I was playing with Newfound Road,
that's close
and
enough,
then
though.
and then played some with her, and then I played more with Newfound Road and Blue Moon Rising. I went back and played a second, stint with Blue Moon Rising. So I was an original banjo player. When I came back, I played dobro and fiddle in that band, and so and through doing that stuff with those two bands in particular, I met Adam Steffi on the road, and when it came time they were deciding to do the Dan Tyminski band, I guess they were looking for somebody to play fiddle and sing tenor, and so my name came up, I'm sure, through Adam and Ron. I had met Ron too through Blue Moon Rising.
So at this point, you're playing fiddle, you're playing banjo. We didn't even talk about how you started the Dobro, which you just won Best Dobro Player of the Year award.
Right.
How old are you around at this period of time?
That I was 27, I want to say. Right. 26, 27, something like that.
So they brought you in, tried you out, and...
Yeah, he put it to me more like just, hey, you want to come jam? And of course the answer was yes.
Right.
With you guys, yes. And so, he told me soon after that, Dan's thinking about putting this band together. And so, that was something that I was so excited for. I was we did it at Barry Bell's house, and so I went up there and, sit and played just like bluegrass album band songs and things that I loved, playing, and that was a really good time. So, that band ended mostly as a result of just Allison going back on the road and stuff.
Well, that's a good reason to end the band.
Yeah, it is. And I was definitely thinking about putting a band together myself. I was thinking about that even before the Dan thing came out. I actually had been getting together with a couple people from around the area I was from there. A guy named Seth Patton, who played banjo and still plays some, and Jesse Gregory, a really good singer that ended up going to ETSU and graduating from there in the bluegrass program, and is one of mine and Sierra's, one of Sierra's best friends. So we were starting to do that when the Dan thing came about, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to do this now. And so I had designs on something like that again after, realizing, well, this Dan Tyminski band thing is kind of wrapping up. And it, stuff like that takes a while to get going. And so just I heard Sierra tell me through Clay Hess. I think Clay Hess had heard that Jim Mills was leaving Ricky's band, and so I think Sierra said, "Hey, you think you'd be interested in playing with Ricky?" And I said, "Yeah.
That's kind of like the same thing when they asked if you want to play with Dan, right?
Oh, and the funny thing is that Ricky had actually called me once before about a position in his band, and it was right after Dan Tyminski band got together, and I couldn't start to do that and then not follow through with it. So
good problem to have, though.
Well, it was crazy, and still is. Like to hear somebody like Ricky's voice on the phone for the first time, like calling you. It's like, is that really him? No, that's him. That's his voice. But so I ended up asking Andy, texting him because we had played contests against each other, and we'd played on a session or two together. And so I knew him a little bit, and texted him and said, "Hey, do you have anybody on banjo yet?" And he said no, and he mentioned it to Ricky, and Ricky called me and had me come to a Prairie Home Companion, which was happening. It was one of the road shows in Ohio, and so I ended up going to that. It was sort of an audition, trial by fire sort of situation, like come here and play this, and if it goes well. And, I played that, and on the way back he said, would you be interested in being a part of the band?
Wow.
So we talked about it.
Is that when you first moved to Nashville then?
It was.
And then that opens up all kinds of doors, because now you're getting calls for session work also.
Definitely. And, I'd done some around in different, smaller studios mostly. And, I was excited. There's part of me that wanted to move to Nashville before that, but just a little hesitant. I had a lot of students that I was teaching in East Tennessee when I lived there.
Sure.
And so it was kind of like, do I give this up and take a chance or whatever?
Right.
On
Well, I think last night certainly proves you made the right decision. Although you knew that way before that.
I think, going and playing in Ricky's band was not just for like playing with Ricky, but the guys in the band. Mark Fain in particular. I know he threw my name out there, several times and got me work in the studio. And Andy same way, and I'm sure Cody probably too. But so making connections there in the band was a big deal and helped me get started on getting some session work. But and then I was thrilled to, I love teaching to a certain degree, but session work is really fun.
Okay, so you go, you're with Ricky, and then how does that kind of come to an end?
After I'd been there for a few years, I think I was with him for 3.5 years, something like that. I felt like I had done all I could do in a way.
Seems like he graduated. Like he's got a lot of people who have come through, went out, and soared.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved all the guys in the band, and Ricky was always tremendous to me. And there was no problems. It felt like to me that it was time to move on and try something else.
Right.
I guess always sort of been an ambitious musician.
So then what happens after that?
So the natural thing, I'd been filling in a lot with Sierra's band in between. I've been doing that, and of course that opportunity was there.
I always figured when we see you playing with her, I always figured that you need a separate U-Haul just for your instruments because you've got so many.
Oh, there's been a time or two, yeah. It would have been great to have. Yeah. But, so there was a year there where I played a lot with Sierra, and also I played with Band of Rooks, great bluegrass band, and Kenny and Amanda Smith. I played with them some for a while.
They got a good award last night.
Yeah. No, you come to this thing for several years, and then all of a sudden it's like, everybody seems like family, and then like whoever's name they announce, you're happy basically because you know that person, and you're like, oh, that's awesome that they went. It's a beautiful thing in this kind of music.
Yeah, no doubt. IBMA is something that every genre of music should have something like this. What happens then? Blue Highway then?
Yeah, so I toured with Sierra with her bluegrass band for a while, and we did like some really cool stuff. One of the things that stands out the most to me about that year is we did a lot of international travel.
Right.
And we did that American Music Abroad trip where we went to Micronesia, and we went to Jerusalem, West Bank, and all that. And it was just a 2-week trip, but we flew all the way around the globe on that. That was probably one of the most interesting experiences that I've had.
I bet.
Music. And so,
Did the audiences have a clue who you guys were?
Oh no, not in either case. But they we were playing for a lot of school children and stuff like that, and most of them, actually, I don't think anybody or any of the kids, especially in Micronesia, had even heard of banjo, especially live.
Excuse my ignorance, but where is Micronesia?
Oh, nobody knows. Yeah,
I have no clue.
But it's in the Pacific Ocean. It's a group of islands. It's not just an island. It's a group of islands, and it's off the coast of Japan and off the coast of Guam. I mean, it's in between those.
Are they their own nation? Did you ever hear of it before you went there?
No.
Yeah, okay.
No, I hadn't, but it was very interesting, to say the least, to go to a place like that. And then to go from there to Jerusalem and just see both cultures and how different they are, but then again, at the same time, how at heart we're all sort of the same.
Yeah. When you go on a big trip like that, do you bring all your instruments, or?
No, that one in particular was just a 5-piece bluegrass band, and I was just playing fiddle, so I just...
Oh, that was easy.
Oh,
you can bring that on board with you.
Yeah.
That's smaller than your luggage.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so now you come back from there,
and so around the end of that year or into 2015 was when Sierra sort of transitioned her, music a little bit from, traditional bluegrass band to what ended up being a duo record with Ethan Yojevitz on bass. And so that left me a little bit like, well, I'm not sure whether, I'm going to be playing a lot or not. And I ended up playing with them for a year and a half, 2 years, like still going out on the road and playing on part of the set a lot of the times, and doing this and that, but and try to establish myself, as more of a session musician and stuff like that.
Right.
And
so that worked out for how long?
Yeah, I basically was. I hesitate to say off the road because I still did some stuff here and there, like where needed or where somebody needed to fill in and stuff like that. But for about a year and a half.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and so then I got to fill in with some great bands too. Like there's a band Newtown that I did quite a bit of guitar fill in with, and so a lot of great, just random experiences, musically during that time too. So
I'm thinking when you're at home, in the living room is one instrument, the dining room is another instrument, and the kitchen's another. So it depends what room you're in to see what you're practicing.
There's some truth to that. We have one room that's sort of the music room, and most of them are in there, but then they always end up getting a little scattered.
At that point, you get the call for Blue Highway.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of my favorite bands, from the time they formed too,
Right.
So I couldn't hardly pass up on an opportunity to play, with
sure.
those guys.
So you've had that at least 3 times where your bands that you looked up to
Absolutely.
you then joined.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenon right there. It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
usually that will happen to somebody if they're lucky once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I know. I still sometimes think about, if I think about it, I go, how did this happen?
you just go out and you do that now, and now you. What's up with Blue Highway? Are they getting ready to tour anytime soon, or?
Yeah, it's they, from the start of that band, they intended on it being just kind of a weekend thing, and not too crazy, but and then they ended up being pretty successful, and but it's still more of a weekend, thing. So yeah, we're always, like this tomorrow I'll be heading to Maryland to play with them. Up until November, I think might have December off this year, and I'm doing some Christmas tour dates with Sierra, but then we'll start back up in January, and we'll get back right back after it.
You're the musician's musician, and you just won the Dobro Player of the Year. So let's discuss Dobro.
All right.
How did that come into your life, and let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. It really came into my life. Well, the same way with my dad. Having one for a while at the house, and me being interested enough in it to start playing it. But I'll say a big point of inspiration on that instrument was when it was about 2002, I guess. Blue Moon Rising, the band that I started out with, made a record. It was called Where Wood Meets Steel, and we decided to hire Rob Ikes for it.
I see.
And I got to be there when he came, and it was just me and Tim that were there in the studio. We'd already tracked, all the stuff. But I got to be there, and even just sitting there and watching him play scales, warming up, was something that I hadn't heard a lot of people do, especially right there in front of me. And so that was a big inspiration to me, just hearing him warm up playing scales, and then to hear, what he did on those songs that we had already,
Right.
Laid some tracks down to. I wanted to learn all that stuff.
So you already had the Dobro, you just went home and started practicing a lot more.
Oh yeah. And I had played a little bit of Dobro on our first record. So I had played. It's not that I hadn't played, but sometimes you can get new inspiration.
I think sometimes you need it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
need it, yeah.
Definitely.
Well, on that level, here we are at the IBMA, and aside from all these bands that you know and love and played with and are friends with, like you were saying, everyone, there's a whole lot of new bands out here. Did you get much time to check out some of the new things that are rolling around here? Like, did you go on the Ramble and stuff like that?
I got to check out some of the ones that played in Marriott. Really talented bands. I particularly got to hear Lonely Heartstrings Band.
Oh, awesome.
They're somewhat established now. People know about them, I think, but they're still a young band. Mile 12 play too, and they're doing some great things.
They are. I agree. Yeah. Well, it's lots of fun coming here. It's lots of congratulations to you for winning this now. But now you go home to your wife. This is her third Mandolin Player of the Year award, so she's got to keep you in place here. The race is on.
Left to do, right? Yeah.
The race is on. Well, anyway, thanks for sitting down and talking with us, and really appreciate it. Best of luck, and we'll be keeping our eyes on you and looking forward to the day you put out an album where you play all the instruments. But my challenge to you is I want to see you do it all lefty, because I know you're all right. All right, take it easy now.
Hey,
Thank you
thanks
so
for having
much.
me. Thank you.